Hey, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here. It is the Earthmaster on this Thursday, January 25th, 2024. It's about 11:12 a.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the globe looks like a 3.3, and we got a lot of clustering going on here in the Indonesia Islands area. We'll take a look at that here in a second. Covering first the Iceland activity. Seeing a little bit of movement down here, a little swarming going on southwest of the Grindavik area. Now, I said to watch for this in terms of potential increasing activity across the region. Right now, there's a handful of earthquakes in this area, including a three-pointer that struck there a few hours ago. Doesn't look like it's had too much effect further up north around Grindavik, but we'll continue to watch that. Normally, we'll see elevated earthquake activity up and down the rift zone prior to any further formation of eruptive fissure activity. Definitely keep an eye on that region around Grindavik. Just a handful of smaller quakes there in the last 12 hours, and no new update from the Icelandic Met Office for now. All right, West Coast, California out here, we did see a four-pointer come in last night, just off the San Andreas Fault, right on the southern just off the southern section here, northern section of the San Jacinto Fault Zone. This earthquake originally coming in as a 4.5, got downgraded to a 4.2 around the San Bernardino area. As you can see on the community internet intensity map, the map that shows where people felt it, fairly large region here reported some shaking out there. Nothing big, but did rattle a few nerves out there. It is about the second earthquake here, very close to the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault that we've seen here in the last, let's see if it's been over 7 days. It has been. So in the last couple weeks, I should say, we had a 4.2 up here on the 5th of January, close to the San Andreas Fault, and then last night's 4.2 along the same segment of the San Jacinto Fault Zone, but very close here in proximity to the San Andreas Fault, which continues to sleep for now, which is a good thing. We don't want to wake that sleeping giant up. We need to be very quiet. Since then, looks like we've had a handful of smaller aftershocks. It's kind of interesting here because we didn't have any aftershock activity from that 4.2 that struck a little bit closer up here back on the 5th of January. So strain, it looks like still kind of developing in this area. Obviously, we know that the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault has been building up steam for quite a while. We haven't really seen any large movement on it, and the question is, what's it going to take here to produce that big one? Is it going to take lots and lots of rainfall, maybe lubricate some of these faults out here, or is it going to take a couple more fours around the vicinity of this plate boundary? Who knows? Can't really accurately 100% predict when earthquake activity is going to happen, but we do got to watch for some little signs before things start kicking up. All right, the rest of Southern California here, a handful of smaller quakes. Up into the north, we got one earthquake here near Los Banos, 2.5. That is on the one of these fault systems here, coastal range fault of the Diablo Range. Nothing big, just a small little quake. Northern California, not a whole lot going on up there. Throughout Washington, about the same thing. Into the Intermountain West areas, a handful of smaller quakes throughout the area. Yellowstone National Park, looks like a couple small earthquakes up here, but let's just double check and see what we have. Doesn't look like a whole lot here. We did have one last night, it looks like, in this area, or on this seismograph station here, which is very close to the Madison Maple Creek area. I mean, there's Madison River, Maple Creek. Either way, that showed up on a few stations over here, but I'm not really seeing anything else going on out here for now. Some type of earthquake coming in. It looks like maybe around the eastern side of the park is going to be this little signature right here, but I'm not 100% certain where that is coming from. It's not showing up yet on the map, but we'll watch that maybe for an update here later. Texas area, still seeing some movement, not quite as active though. Some ones and twos out there in the oil fields, and the rest of the country, aside from one little microquake here in the New Madrid seismic zone, got a 1.5 from last night. The rest of the country out there fairly quiet. Let's see what else we have. The big island of Hawaii out here in the middle of the Pacific. Still waiting on this here. 2.7, the latest earthquake around Pahala. The latest statement here, let's just double check that and see what we got from the USGS. Daily update put out today. The volcano is currently not erupting. Let's check the tilt meter, though, real quick and see what we have. Before we move on, UWE is a station I normally keep an eye on out here. And, ooh, is it offline? Are they pulling the plug? Kind of looks like it's UW. There we go. Last 2 days here, a little bit of up and down motion there in the inflation charts. The overall trend, though, we're still elevated, but we're in that little stage, that little phase here where we go through a little period of leveling off before coming back up. It looks like maybe we'll possibly by tonight maybe start to see this thing rise back up. It's been predictable. I'm not even joking. This thing has been predictable since the last eruption there in September last year. We watched this go up and up and up with periods of deflation or leveling off, and then followed up a couple days later by further inflation, and then each one higher than the previous inflation event. So that should continue to go up. And even these levels here that you're seeing on the chart are the highest level seen there at the summit region as far as inflation goes since 2018, since the 2018 eruption. So things are definitely getting pressurized underneath this area. It's just a matter of time before we see some fissure activity open up. This is the lava lake area of the Kilauea volcano. These are not surface details. This is lens flare. The sun almost directly shining in it. It looks like the sun is just a few more degrees up north or up above this camera. Volcanic gases going on here, seeping through the tiniest cracks, but these are lens flares. You can see some of it here in a rainbow fashion as well within this screen. All right, what else we got for the world? I see a couple new earthquakes coming in. One 5.1, Papua New Guinea. And more recently, got another earthquake down in Chile. Fairly deep, 116 kilometers there for a 5.0. The rest of the area, still seeing some movement up in the Alaska area. Nothing new, just a couple ones out there from that 5-pointer that struck a few days ago now. New Zealand down here, this is from yesterday, 4.3, but they've definitely been having a little bit of swarming out there in that area. Let's go check that out on the New Zealand site here. See if I can find it. I got so many sites up here. Let me double check. Here we go. I think this is it. Yeah, there's that 4.2 strongest earthquake. Looks like that was up along the Kermadec Trench here in the red pinpoint. Latest quake shows a 3.2 with preliminary data. That's going to be down here off the plate boundary. Now, I don't know if we've had any further swarming out here in the area of yesterday's quake. It looks like we're still seeing a little bit of movement down here in this area of New Zealand. Handful of clustering going on within this zone. Now, we did have some not large earthquake activity, but a little bit moderate movement there yesterday with that 5.2 earthquake coming into the area. Still, it almost looks like just aftershock activity following yesterday's event. Some of those threes, but a lot of them much smaller. Let's go check the drums out in that area and see what we have across the New Zealand area. The one that we're after is going to be, it looks a lot quieter today. Definitely a lot quieter. Going to be one of these stations right here. Here's some of that 2s and 3s from yesterday, getting off that 24-hour threshold. But since then, it looks like things have calmed down. Maybe a handful of smaller quakes, but looks like that activity is dwindling away. All right, what else we got across the region? China's still seeing some activity up here, some 4s and 5s. It looks like most of this, though, was from yesterday, so not a whole lot. Just one 4.2 since midnight my time. Further down here across the divergent zones in the Gulf of Aden at a 5.4. earlier this morning, just off that plate boundary. It looks like still see that this little trench fracture zone here. Up north into Turkey, at a 5.0 about 5 o'clock this morning. Within that zone, that's seen the sequence of the 7 magnitude earthquakes there last year. A little bit of aftershock activity continuing within that zone. And aside from that, the Atlantic Ocean here looks like a little earthquake out here, some older movement from yesterday. There's that 3-pointer up in Iceland. We'll continue to watch that. It seems as though when we get some divergent boundary activity up here, the spreading of the seafloor, so to speak, that allows for some further elevated activity there across Iceland, which would make sense, right? And in turn could amplify the conditions there across Grindavik. I got corrected on that. I hear a couple people saying Grindavik, and then other people saying, no, it's not Grindavik, it's Grindavik. So, well, take your pick. I'm pretty certain, though, that it is the Grindavik, but I was corrected on that prior. Okay. What else do we have? There's Papua New Guinea earthquake. Well, watch this area pretty closely. They're just now having another earthquake. Looks like maybe a smaller one, but there's a huge cluster of activity here confined to the area of the Java Trench. It's going to be the southern end, right around here, it looks like. So just keep an eye on that region. It looks like maybe it's building up a little bit of further activity, maybe some larger scale movement taking place there soon. Space weather activity, just going to keep this somewhat short. Calming down slightly here. I'm looking at not a whole lot of spikiness on the chart in the last 12 hours, 24 hours or so. That looks like, and that tells me that the sunspots out here are, well, they're not quite as complex as they have been. Relatively stabilizing is the word I'm trying to find here. Looks like a few of these are stabilizing, creating that lack of instability. But they're still there, and they still pose a threat maybe of some M-flare activity. But looking at these, they look like they're decaying is the word as well. And we're left with a whole lot of nothingness back here across the center disk of the sun. Over on the eastern limb, yes, there's a couple new sunspots. I'm uncertain, though, on if they're going to be worthy of any solar flares in the days or week ahead. But we'll continue to watch that. Not seeing a whole lot of aurora forecast for now. Things are pretty green across the board. Not a whole lot of auroras in the air or in the atmosphere for the forecast. Storm Prediction Center out here does show a little slight risk of some severe weather across portions of the south down there, with a 5% zone in the Mississippi, Alabama area. And that could mean that there could be some tornado possibilities out there today with these storms. So just a heads up, also within this 2% zone as well. The 5% is just basically an area that where the most dynamics are set up to see some tornado activity. A little bit of wind activity as well, aside from the tornadoes. Numerical models out here, keep checking these because I'm watching the West Coast potentially for some wetter conditions. Looks like the GFS has went back and remained wet here for the West Coast as we head into the 1st of February. And then there's a little interesting scenario here with Southern California potentially getting a cutoff low system, bringing in quite a bit of rain. A couple storm systems there. So we'll have to watch that. But either way, it looks to remain wet out here across the West Coast as we head into the February time frame. All right, guys, I'm out of here. Got quite a bit of stuff I got to do today, some schoolwork and all sorts of regular fun stuff. So I'll catch you guys back here a little bit later on this evening. Take care. Stay safe out there and enjoy the sunshine if you got it. We got a couple breaks in the clouds today here in Northern California, so I'm just going to enjoy the sunshine out there, about 60 degrees. And yeah, we'll see you guys back here a little bit later tonight. Take care, folks.